The sunset.
I was born in the southern part of the United States. My parents were sharecroppers, and we were very poor, but our family was intact. We're living under apartheid, which they called segregation. And part of my responsibility as a student was to join the movement for civil rights of people of color in the United States. And so I was very politically active from the time I was in college. And I've always been politically active and a member of many different kinds of movements. I believe I was born a writer. I think that sometimes we are inheritors of past life desires, and I wanted to write from the time I was a child. In writing The Color Purple, my intention was to spend time with my grandparents, especially, because when I was 8 years old, I lived for 1 year with my grandparents, and I loved them very deeply. So when I was in school, I saw no trace of my grandparents in any of the textbooks. I saw no reflection of my parents. I saw nothing about my mother. And so this made it very necessary for me as a writer to write about people like my parents and my grandparents, so that when my children read books, it's possible for them to encounter the people that I come from. The Color Purple made a very good film. I was on the set almost every day. It was a wonderful collaborative experience, and I have great admiration for Steven Spielberg. It took a lot of courage to make that film, and he did a very fine job.
I know he a bully.
I did not like it the first time I saw it, but I think that is not unusual. Over time, I have grown to really appreciate it, and my family all really love it.
See, Daddy, sinners have soul too.
Just as close as my breath is to me, just as close as my
I think Joan Doyle is a very perceptive director. I did not see the production in London, but apparently it was extremely moving and a great success. What I like is his sensitivity to detail and not wanting to sensationalize anything, but wanting the story, the core of the story, the truth of the story, the heart of the story to be very present for people. So I don't know if you know, but on the stage this time on Broadway, they will only have a few chairs and a couple of baskets. That's the entire set. So the emotion of the story will be bare. It will be the essence of what you see. There will not be any distractions at all. I mean, when they want to change something, they go and pick a chair up, off the wall and put it somewhere, and then you sit in the chair. It's a remarkable thing. I mean, it takes a lot of self-confidence.
color purple. Where do we come from? Now my eyes are open. Look what God has done.
Since I was a very small child, I've always read a lot. I read many novels when I was 11 and 12 years old. I read Jane Eyre when I was 13. I loved Thomas Hardy when I was growing up. I love Victor Hugo very much. I love the Russian writers. My favorites, of course, Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, Gorky. And I studied them when I was in college. The poet Audre Lorde has said, for instance, that poetry, which I started writing when I was very young, is not a luxury. It's a necessity. The fundamental question about revolution, as some people are not afraid to know, is not simply whether I am willing to give up my life, but if I am prepared to give up my comfort. Clean sheets on my bed, the speed of the dishwasher, and my gas stove, gadgetless but still preferable to cooking out of doors over a fire of smoldering roots, my eyes raking the skies for planes, the hills for army tanks. Paintings I have revered stick against my walls as unconcerned as saints, their perfection alone sufficient for their defense. Yet not one lifeline thrown by the artist beyond the frame reaches the boy whose eyes were target for a soldier's careless aim, or the small girl whose body napalm a hot bath after mass rape transformed, or the old women who starve on muscatel nightly on the streets of New York. It is shameful how hard it is for me to give them up, to cease this cowardly addiction to art that transcends time, beauty that nourishes a ravenous spirit but drags on the mind, whose sail would patch a roof, heat the cold rooms of children, replace an eye, feed a life. It does not comfort me now to hear, "The poor we shall have with us always." Christ should never have said this. It makes it harder than ever to change, just as it failed to comfort me when I was poor. I started writing short stories when I was in college, and I gave my first short story to my teacher, one of my teachers, and she gave it to Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes is a very well-known writer and also a political activist in his own way, who encouraged me. And when I was living in Mississippi, often there wasn't a lot to do. I did teach 2 college courses, but I wrote mostly short stories. I wrote 2 novels and lots of poems. And so my work is quite literary, but it's informed by the reality of living in basically a very racist country, and a very violent one. My ancestry, like that of many people in Brazil, is mixed. It's a mixed ancestry. So my parents and grandparents have inherited African blood and genes, Cherokee, which is Native American blood and genes, and also Irish English and probably Welsh genes. So in studying my own ancestry, I realized that I have a natural allegiance to Africans, to Native Americans, and to poor white people. So my focus has been on understanding those forces and how they have interacted with each other, often not very well. But it's the same in any colonized country where the races have mixed, sometimes very violently. So the stories there have to be explored, and they have to be examined, and they have to be told in order for eventually the rest of us, all of us, to heal from what has been an assault in many cases on the personhoods of our ancestors. When I was an editor at Ms. Magazine in New York City for many years, I deliberately contacted African women writers because they have such a strong vision of the reality of the continent. And I was able to learn a great deal about the history from the perspective of the women, which is very rare. So I understand a lot about the strength of the cultures. They're very different, of course, in each country. And this has been very helpful in my understanding of, for instance, freedom movements. And of course, today, there are many really fabulous Black writers in the United States. Very good poets and people who help all of us to grow, because it's beyond trying to help white people understand Black people. It's more about helping us connect to the planet, to defend the earth, and to care about the future. And all of this is slowly, and sometimes not so slowly, incorporated into the vision that people of color, not just Black people of color, but also Indians, Native Americans. It is this vision of caring about the earth, which we have always done, that is slowly coming into the general culture's consciousness. I feel that some subjects need poems and some subjects need novels. Some subjects need essays, some subjects need plays. And so I listen very carefully and I meditate very hard on what each expression really needs, what form it should take. And that is the form that I give it. A novel may take 2 years to write. And so I have to find the money, and I have to find the time, and I have to find the space in which to write a novel that takes 2 years. Poetry, mercifully, doesn't require that kind of attention to space and time, only to emotion and insight. So it can be much more brief. What is required is not quite so extended. I write a lot of essays because I find that I can write an essay in a few days. Short stories, which I don't write as much anymore, but I used to write a lot of them, require, maybe a month or two, but not a whole year. Also, as a woman who has a child, it was important for me to be able to write in different genres when she was small. Overcoming speechlessness is a way to talk about barbaric situations occurring regularly in humanity today, and things that are so horrible that human beings have a very difficult time finding words for them. But if we cannot speak about horrible things that are happening to us as human beings, we are unable to help people who need us, especially women and children and men who try to change bad situations. But it's a constant battle to be able to, draw enough courage from ourselves to speak about some of the things happening. For instance, in the Congo today, the war in the Congo has consumed the lives of over 8 million people. People don't speak about this very often. The Congo now is considered the worst place on the planet to be a woman because of the torture, the rape, the abuse of women. People don't speak about it very much. And it isn't just that people are hard-hearted. It isn't just that people, are offended. It's basically that it's very difficult today to comprehend the tragedy of what is happening to us as human beings. If you can separate yourself from the people of Africa, from the Congo, you think that you are safe. But actually, we are one people. We look slightly different, but we are actually one. And so when you hear about awful things, because they are so close to you as a human being, you have to really fight to have your own courage to be able to speak about them and to be present for what is happening. I think for young people of the world, the big problem is our constant disaster as a planet. So there's an urgency to having a voice about what is happening. And whether you are black or brown or yellow or white, it's a responsibility that you have to speak in defense of Earth, of the planet. And to make your art very strong and very powerful, which is to say, to take really good care of your health, to try to live a very decent and centered life. I would recommend meditation, which is an excellent way to gather your thoughts and your emotions and your resolve so that you're strong. You need to be very strong. And if your educational system does not do its part to educate you, you must learn to read everything. And you must learn to use the internet so that you can educate yourself. It is possible in this time for almost everyone who has access to either books or the internet to fashion a quite good education. And so the search should be to find your teachers. You are now able to find teachers all over the globe. You don't have to depend on the teachers in your school. I am very concerned about whether books will survive. And I remember that short story by, I forget who that was, who wrote about Fahrenheit 451, I think it was. Do you know who wrote that book?
Yes,
it's Ray Bradbury, where in the future, all the books are destroyed and people have to memorize them. So every person becomes a book. And I think we may be getting there because the book itself seems to many people to be outdated. I mean, just the physical book is outdated. And they can now get the book on, their computer.
on all the gadgets, Kindle and whatever. I think it's very dangerous because I realize that the people who own the computer software will always be in control of what people can read if we lose our books. So I'm now moving out of my house. I'm packing up, many, many boxes of books. And it's so hard to give them away. I mean, I'm going to give them to a university because I know that people will need them if, in fact, the people who control Microsoft and Apple and Facebook, if they decide that we don't deserve or they don't want us to have certain books, we won't have them. If the books themselves are not in existence, people will be dependent on the, on the media, on that medium. So I'm very concerned. I think it's something that human beings should be discussing every single day. What is the future of books? And how can we be sure that we have access to all the information that we need when so few people now control the means of spreading information? It's very crucial. I would say that reading is the surest road to not only education, but to liberation. Without reading, you can't find the key that opens the door to your freedom. And if you can read, nothing can stop you. Nothing can stop you from finding out who you are, your place in the universe, where you might be going, where you're from. Reading is incredibly revolutionary. I mean, it is a major endeavor that people must not lose, and they must not minimize its importance. I mean, it is the major thing that transforms us, because we are then able to go from, our world, what we perceive to be our world, which is somewhat small, because it's just what we know, into any world that we can imagine. We can go there, and we can vicariously live in all the different worlds that we can imagine through our reading. It's incredible. And I think the magic of it is something that we should instill in our children so that they will have that no matter what is done to them, no matter where they have to go. As long as they have a book, they can be free.
I just have a love of it, a love of literature, and I understand that it is a way for people, not just poor people like I was, but for any person, to enlarge their sense of what is available to know and to have and to be in the world. On a daily basis for about, 40 years of my life, maybe 30 years of my life, I have written every day. It's only in the last decade that I don't have a formal morning ritual of writing every day. Now I tend to write when I feel like it.